Well, hello. I'm Reverend Preston Boyd. I'm the pastor at Mitcham Chapel AME Church, and I'm being joined today by Officer Yerke of the Royal Oak Police Department. And we're here today to talk about the school liaison officers. So to start off with, Officer, I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the school liaison officer and why you feel they're necessary in the schools today.
I think the school liaison officer position is extremely important in schools today for a multitude of reasons. The first is safety. Unfortunately, violent incidents occur at schools. So by having school resource officers or school liaison officers within the school, you have someone there who's a first responder. They're the first line of defense if something were to happen. The second thing we do is we show a name, a face, a personality with the badge. We can build those relationships with students, with staff members, with families, and kind of humanize the badge. And the third thing, and a very important thing, is we are there to assist students and families as a buffer between bad decisions and the criminal justice system.
Very good. You know, you made an interesting point on that question that I really like. You spoke about being there and being able to respond. And sadly, we do live in a challenging world today. And by having an officer on premises, the response time, you don't have to wait for someone to show up. An officer is there, and I would imagine that may act as part of it as a deterrent in some way. Is that fair to say?
I would like to think so. I would definitely like to think so that, Royal Oak Police Department, we are extremely prepared with the equipment that we have, where it's placed in our planning, the way we work with the school system to do that. And I'm confident in any pre-planning for an incident that were to take place.
Outstanding. Well, the next thing I would like to talk about, I know from our conversations earlier today that you have a strong love for the community, okay? And one of the things that I think that I would like to talk about is the value added that your presence at the school may do, because people may think you're there just to prevent something bad from happening, but by you being there, there are other things that you can contribute to the children. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Some of the extra things that happen in a school liaison officer position is educating. And so I present different assemblies throughout the year to different grades, different age groups of kids on social media, picture and video sharing, how to conduct yourself in a traffic stop, the dangers of drugs and alcohol. So these are presentations that are put out there. Unfortunately, due to COVID, over these last year or so, we haven't been able to do those presentations.
I think, you know what, when listening to you talk about that's really a good thing, because a lot of times our young people, they have this Superman, Superwoman, Wonder Woman mentality that they're invulnerable and nothing hurts them, but bad things can happen. So by you warning them about those things, that's something that would add value to their lives. As we talk, I just wonder if you would you share some light on what do you think are some attributes that make a good school liaison officer? You know, it's like a lot of things in life. There are a lot of jobs, but everybody's not cut out to do a certain job.
Yes.
And for a school liaison officer, I think there are certain things that would make for a good one, but I would like for you to share based on your experience.
I think right off the bat, I would say compassion. It's one of our department's core values. To have compassion for students and families individually, to know that each situation is different and it's not all just cookie cutter. And so to have that compassion there, to be able to work with those kids, to educate those kids, to shed some light on maybe behavior traits that aren't gonna be too positive moving forward, and try and help change those. Another one would be understanding. I'm a parent myself. I have 2 children in the Royal Oak school system. They're both at the high school. So I understand the pressure that goes into being a student when it deals with fashion, grades, athletics, gadgets, popularity. I understand the pressures that are on the kids there. I also understand the pressure as a parent in the Royal Oak School District. just trying to raise a child that you're proud of, trying to provide them with all those things that I just said, trying to get them the new phone, trying to get them, all this stuff so that, that they don't feel left out. So there's that understanding. And then the third thing, I think, is a sense of humor. I mean, I'm a big guy in the school system, and I think to be able to hang out with the kids and teens all day and just laugh and laugh at the goofy things that they do and be able to laugh at myself, I think those are traits that really go into making a good SLO.
That's outstanding, and I would imagine, listening to you talk, that can have a positive influence on kids, because it can change perceptions. Because it's one thing if you've never encountered a police officer
Sure.
in person. You see things on TV, or your friends say things
Sure.
about them, but to see a blue uniform in the school and seeing that officer interact with the kids and realizing that, okay, this is a good guy.
Sure.
It may well change some perceptions.
Hopefully that is a huge part that we want to portray, is to make that connection and to, break those stereotypes and build things up.
Outstanding. So let me ask you this: to be a school liaison officer, is there any type of? I know you're trained to be a policeman,
Sure,
an
sure,
officer.
sure. Yep.
But is there any special training that you have taken within the Royal Oak Police Department, or your background perhaps even, that makes you particularly prepared to do this kind of job?
Well, the Royal Oak Police Department puts training its officers. There's a large emphasis on that. We are trained in the latest equipment, de-escalation techniques, implicit bias training, mental health awareness. These are yearly trainings that we as police officers go through here. Me personally, my special training goes a bit further in the areas of juvenile law. So that's something, obviously, dealing with the schools that I get into a little bit more. Mental awareness, I'm a trainer for mental health here at ROPD. And then, as you said, the personal things. I grew up as a community center director here in Royal Oak, dealing with troubled teens, dealing with businesses and in the area, all sorts of things like that. So I know a lot of people in the community, have a bunch of resources, a bunch of people know me, so hopefully all that tied together creates an SLO that people can be proud of.
All right. So let me ask you this: as a parent, some parents may wonder why a school has a school liaison officer. So I would like for you to just expound on what determines whether a school has a school liaison officer assigned to it.
Okay, here in Royal Oak, all the schools, both public and private, are overseen by the school resource officer. So there's 13 in all.
Okay.
I spend most of my time between the high school and the middle school. The high school is where my office is located. Okay. So most of my time is spent between those two. As far as communities in the area, to my knowledge, every school has a resource officer that is attached to it to deal with the juvenile issues. I would be unaware if one didn't.
Okay.
Under my understanding, every school should have a resource officer.
Okay. So the next question I want to ask deals with, it's kind of a multi-question, but
okay.
How do you spend your time? Some people may go like, school liaison officer, blue uniform. He's standing at the door and he's watching us when we come in, or he's go frisk me, frisk my backpack, and he's go be doing locker searches, and so what? Right. I don't think that's your day.
That is not at all what happens, and I think that is the biggest misconception. I do not handle. I am not in the hallways patrolling. I am not searching out students. The school has their own hall monitors. And so what happens is, if a hall monitor walks into a bathroom, catches a student vaping or a student skipping class, the hall monitors take them to school administration, and school administration deals out, detentions and suspensions, things like that. That has nothing to do with me. I handle 0 student handbook issues. Okay. I don't tell kids to take their hats off. I don't tell kids to take their hoods off. I don't tell kids that they can't swear or to calm down in the hallways. That's not me. I'm there for criminal issues. I'm there to be that buffer between students that make bad decisions and trying to get them through school with a clean record. So, in all honesty, my typical day in the office is I come in the morning, I answer calls and emails from students, staff, and community members. A third of my day is spent interacting with the kids and the teens at their lunch periods. So there's 3 lunch periods every day. I get to sit through all of them, hear all the jokes, watch all the viral videos that they show me, all that stuff. Build those relationships there, let them see that the man inside the uniform is a pretty decent guy. And then my afternoons are usually spent either doing presentations, the assemblies, tornado drills, fire drills, answering more questions, meetings. That is what I actually do in the school. So it is different than like what's portrayed in a movie or maybe a TV show as to like what the school resource officer is doing.
Okay. If I could you, when you're sitting with the kids at lunch and interacting with them, have you found that they have questions about policing that surprise you, and have you had a chance to talk to them about that?
Absolutely. So the main one I always get is, it depends on the age group of the children or the student. So in high school, you get a bunch of like goofy, fun questions, but you also have kids that have no police officers in their life. Maybe it's not a family member, they never lived next to one, they've never talked to a police officer. And so there might be a little bit of intimidation or things there. And so you get different degrees. You have some kids that ask like introduction questions, and one of the biggest is, have you ever shot your gun? And so I take that time to be able to say, no, and I'm glad I haven't. Right. This changes lives. This changes the way we it's a major thing. I thank God every single day that I've never had to pull my gun and use it. So I'm able to also talk to them about gun safety and how they're not toys and things of that nature. And then every kid asks me, can I be tased? For some reason, teenagers want to be tased. It's ridiculous. And so you start to get all these questions. They ask you about the stuff on the belt. So maybe like the first month of school, kids that are new to the school, it's all those questions. What's that on your belt? What's that on your belt? And then as they become sophomores, as they become juniors, it's more personal questions. And then by the time they're seniors, I'm getting invited to graduation parties. I'm getting invited to, hey, my father passed away, would you come to his funeral? This past year, one of my former students, his dad had a heart transplant. And so to be able to go and see him home and those types of things, those are the questions. So they it's a huge range as the questions I'm asked, but I love answering them. That's why I'm there.
That's great. I appreciate that, because that gives us a different view.
Sure.
And to the parents that may be watching this of what your day is like.
Absolutely.
And how you're interacting with their kids. The next question I want to shift to is one that we have to come to grips with. We live in a diverse society.
Sure.
And our schools are diverse, right? And so there obviously have been things that we see on TV where officers are interacting in a way that causes some concern with parents. So in a diverse school, you're going to have different concerns from an African American family, from a Latino family, from a Caucasian family. Some of them will be different, some of them will be the same concerns. But one thing that will always be there is that all parents, regardless of ethnicity, want to make sure that their children are treated, fairly,
absolutely,
and equitably. So I just want you to address, what could you say to parents, to all parents, to kind of set their minds at ease that an encounter with you or as a school liaison officer won't be some of those. I don't want to say shouldn't be some of those things that they see on TV that they may have a false image of.
Absolutely. And I think you said it when asking the question. It doesn't matter the background. It doesn't matter the race or the culture that families are coming from. At the end of the day, we're all parents. And I say we, me included. We're all parents, and we all want our kids to be treated fairly. We all want our kids to be able to go to school and know that they're safe, they're getting the best education that they can. And so I make it of the utmost importance and my focus to make sure that I can do that, and to make sure that each kid does feel like they've been treated fairly by me, whether that's a hello in the in the hallway or something of that nature. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this: if If a child is referred to you,
Yes.
okay, and you get and you get involved with them, and there's a case where the child brings up an issue and saying there was somebody else involved, right?
Sure.
But he was the only one brought to you. As you talk to them, is there room for that child's voice to be heard? And then how would you go about handling something like that?
Right. So if there's a school issue, the school would handle that. So if
Okay.
it's something that came out of the student's handbook, the school is going to handle that, and that never gets to me. I never see that incident. If it's of criminal nature, where it's being brought to me and a police report has been made, I'm going to work with the detective bureau here at Royal Oak Police Department. We're going to do our own investigation. You know, we're gonna find who's involved. We're gonna find the witnesses. We're gonna do what we do, regardless of the information that first came to us.
Okay.
So, if we're going off victim made this police report, to us, we don't know. There's no biases. There's no nothing as far as the information that we're initially given.
Okay.
We're just gonna go through our protocol and use you know, what we normally do as a professional police department.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
to get to the bottom of that.
Okay. Thank you. So if you do happen to interact with a child,
Sure.
some parents may want to know, well, how am I notified that my child has been referred to a school liaison officer? What's the protocol for that?
So the protocol for that would be if there was something, again, criminal in nature that the student was accused of doing, what happens is the school immediately calls the parent to pick the student up.
Okay.
When the parent would arrive at the school, I would introduce myself, let them know who I am, let them know what was going on with their student, and I would immediately ask them for permission to talk to their student to get their side of the story with their parent present.
Okay.
It is against the law for me to interview a juvenile about a criminal issue without a parent or guardian. So right off the rip, that's never going to happen. The school system then does a twofold protection with the student, because then the school system doesn't allow police officers to come into the school and interview students on criminal matters without a parent being present, a guardian being present, or in the cases where, you know, some parents are like, absolutely they can interview them, but I want a school administrator in there with them, then that would take place.
Okay. Okay. So parents are involved in that. It's not something that would happen to their children.
100%.
Okay.
Involved 100%, correct.
Outstanding. Now, when we were talking earlier, you had made mention that you interact with the kids and you try to your presence. You try to de-escalate things and to make sure they're on the right path. Can you explain how a referral to you may impact a student's permanent record? Because these, especially in the high school, kids. Let's be honest. Kids will do kid things.
Absolutely.
Teenagers will be teenagers.
Absolutely.
Right? And so they have their whole life ahead of them.
Sure.
So is an encounter with you necessarily something that goes on their permanent record where colleges or universities may see it, or can it be handled without that in some cases, without that being part of a permanent record?
No, that is exactly part of the reason why we're there. So school liaison officers are there to educate and find alternative methods to get those students through their adolescent years onto whatever path they choose in life with a clear record. So just recently, we had a student that had an issue that could have been potentially large. We were able to sit down with all the parties that were involved. We were able to talk to the victim's family, the student, his family, and we were able to come to a solution that would educate the child on his behavior, that would teach him a life lesson moving forward, and how this isn't a way that a young man should act. This isn't the way that people do in everyday life. And so this child was able to, and this student was able to, again, learn a lesson, be educated on what he was doing, and change the behavior, which is ultimately what we want to be able to do, is to be able to change those behaviors so they are better down the road and make those better decisions. And then we were also able to keep that off of his record by doing these alternative, means of punishment, I guess you could say.
Okay, outstanding. So from our earlier talk, I get the sense that you are an officer that really enjoys what you do. And during this interview, I also sense that. So Let me ask you something. What do you enjoy most about being a school liaison officer?
Man, what I enjoy what I enjoy the most about being a school liaison officer is just showing the kids that the people underneath this uniform are normal people. I like to goof around with the kids. I like to have talks about sneakers and music and viral videos. I mean, since I've become a school resource officer, I think I know more about Jordans and the latest shoes that are coming out just so I can talk to kids about these things. So I want them to be able to see that there's somebody underneath the uniform. I'm a parent. I'm just a normal guy. I go home, I love to cook, I love to play my guitar. I like to go to athletic events at the high school. I like to go to the musicals put on by the drama club. I like to see those kids succeed. So as I'm there, whether I have interactions with the kids or not, I know who my students are there. And to see them succeed in life, and maybe after they graduate to see that they made it in the paper for this, or this person is studying this and got some big award, like that's what I love about my job, is just having these connections with students and seeing them succeed.
And do you find that sometimes kids reach back to you after you've had encounters with them or after they've graduated to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I've said earlier, like whether it's getting that invite to their graduation parties, or I have a bunch of students who come back throughout the year. COVID's made it a little bit difficult, but they like to come back, at noon, 1 in the afternoon. They just come in, they sit in my office, they tell me what's going on in their lives. Hey, this is going on. Can I get some advice on this as to what I should do here or there? All those things. So I've been in the schools for 3 years. Again, about a year of that was COVID, kind of changed things. So for those years that I've been in there, absolutely, like the relationships I've had with the kids and just seeing them come back and talk to them, and like I said, getting texts and social media interactions and stuff like that. It's been nice.
All right. So the next question I want to ask deals with your uniform. Okay. And just like in doctor's offices, sometimes if you go in, they say, well, your blood pressure is high because you have the white coat syndrome, right? And I see a white coat and immediately I'm going like, it's going to be high.
Yep.
The blue uniform.
Yes.
It stands for something. It really does stand for something. But also when we look at different communities, okay, it evokes different feelings, different thoughts. And so I was just wondering, in the school, first of all, do you always wear a uniform? And then is there an option sometimes for you to dress down in civilian clothes where you may be more relatable to some kids than if you were in full uniform, okay?
Sure. No, when I am at work, I am in this uniform. First off, because of function. My belt, everything that's on here, all the equipment is so I can be prepared if something were to happen at the school while I'm on duty. I'm prepared and I have the tools of my trade to be able to do that. The next thing is I enjoy wearing this uniform because I worked hard. I worked very hard to get this uniform through academy, through education, through hard work. I've earned the amazing, I just love that I've earned the fact to wear this uniform. I love what it stands for, but I also understand that other people don't feel the same way. And so I do want to be that person that if kids aren't familiar with what it means to me, that I can show them that. I want kids, families, students, staff members to be able to say, there's a guy in there, there's not a robot. And I want people to be, just to be aware and just to know that they can come to this uniform for help, for a laugh, for conversation. And we all know that you got to go to a cop to see where the best place to eat is. So you can always do that. If anything, this uniform should say, hey, that guy knows where the good places to eat are. So that's why I enjoy wearing this uniform. Now, off duty, I live in the community. So I love seeing those students when they see me in my Jordans, in my skinny jeans, in my hoodie, and to see the kids at the grocery store, whether they're working there or at a restaurant, and they're, oh, Officer Yerke, and then we can chit chat in that capacity. So they can see me as a dad, as a husband in a restaurant, but then when I'm at school, they see the police officer and they know that, that uniform doesn't maybe stand for what we see on the news, or maybe we've experienced through stories or personal events, but there is something different about it.
Well, so in that case, I hear your answer. So it would sound like you believe that you can change the narrative and the perception
I
by
do.
being the example of what the uniform
I do.
stands for.
I do. In the same way that any individual can change that previous perception or that stereotype of whatever subclass or subgenre that they, a punk rocker. If a punk rocker, if you see a kid with the big blue mohawk and spikes and leather and he's on a skateboard, it doesn't mean that he's out vandalizing everything.
Right.
That student, that kid could be a very well-educated, smart kid, and you could talk some really great music with that kid. So I think it doesn't matter what you're a part of. I believe when we start that dialogue and that narrative with people, that's where we can change perceptions.
Right. All right. So my next question deals with transparency. Okay.
Yep.
And as parents, sometimes that you will have encounters throughout the school year. Is there transparency for the parents to understand what type of issues you're being involved in at the school? And the reason I ask that is that it may not be their kids, but if there were 3 or 4 incidences with different children for the same issue, if the parents knew that you were being involved with the children at the school,
Sure.
that would provide an avenue for them to say, well, I need to talk to mine also about that because there's something going on at the high school. So is there transparency where parents can have some kind of report or find out what you're involved in at the school?
Sure. Here at the Royal Oak Police Department, we are all about transparency. So I have a sergeant and a lieutenant that I report to. And so if there is a criminal complaint and a police report has been made, by its very nature, it's a report and it's documented. So if there's ever a major issue, it's always documented and there for people to see. Now, if it's a smaller situation, like I've talked to a kid about speeding through the parking lot, how that's not safe, or a student maybe rode his moped to school and didn't wear a helmet, those aren't conversations or interactions that are officially documented.
Okay.
Now, if it's just a school issue, as you brought up, like if a child keeps getting in trouble for something, if it's not a criminal issue and it's just a school issue, the school has the same type of documentation system that would be in their computers and in their filing that states we've had to talk to this student over and over, but that has nothing to do with me. So expulsions, detentions, suspensions, that has nothing to do with the police end of it. That's just through the school, and I'm sure parents can talk to administrators about any of that.
All right, thank you. Well, my final question is kind of an open-ended question, and it's a chance for you to speak to any of the parents out there in terms of the differences that as a school liaison officer, and you've spoken about some of them earlier, that you've had a chance to make in their children's lives. Because I think the school liaison officer position from our discussion today has real value. The kids seem to have an appreciation for it. But I just want you to be able to talk to any of the parents and tell them the impact that you see that they may not know about.
Sure. And I think we talked earlier before we were on camera about it. I've grown up in this city. I live in this city currently. I spent 13 years working at the Royal Oak Salvation Army as a community center director, as a youth director. I ran day camps, recreation leagues. I got to know the kids in this town, the families in this town, business owners in this city. And I absolutely love this city, and I love people who are coming into this city. I love that other people think that's a city where I want to live. And I don't care about background, skin color, any of that. If you are coming to Royal Oak because you look at my town and you say, that's where I want to be, that's where I want to raise a family, I want you to be here. I want to break bread with you. I want to experience other culture, other food, other music, all that stuff. Bring it to my city. So first and foremost, that's something that I would want to tell people. And because of my background with the Salvation Army and things like that, that's where I started really looking at my life saying, I'm here as a community center director. I see some of these kids that are a little rough around the edges. But nobody really goes to their community center director, the guy who's running their basketball league, to talk to and to have those heart-to-hearts with. And so I've always had a calling in my life to be a police officer, and I do use that word calling seriously, and I do understand what that means. And I've had a calling to be a police officer, And so I got to a point in my life where I was seeing these kids at the community center, and I was thinking, I can do more. I want to do more. And so for me, being a police officer and getting into law enforcement was the vehicle by which I could do that. And I think it was a great decision. I love doing it. I love my job. You know, we always tell our kids, like, find something that you want to get up and do every single day. And for me, even my worst day that I've ever had on the job is better than my best day that I've ever done doing any other occupation. I love my job. I get up every day and I have a smile on my face when I come to work. I love interacting with everybody. I love my bosses. I love my coworkers. I have a great time doing what I do. Now, I kind of want to flip the script on you
Okay.
and ask you, because I know, like, I love being a police officer and why I got into it. And I've heard that you recently have become a new Royal Oak Police Department chaplain. And I wanted to ask you, what was it about that made you, like, want to come aboard and help us out?
Well, I guess turnabout is fair play. Okay,
Right.
since I've interviewed you. The reason I became a Royal Oak chaplain, police officer chaplain, was because the chief and I actually had a talk a couple of years back when I was down here, and we were talking about that. Events were happening, and I decided to, and we were forming at our church a social action committee to get more involved. And we've always been focused on the community at our church here in Royal Oak. And so we reached out, and the chief reached out to us, and we had an event with him where he came out and spoke to our congregation. It was outside because of COVID.
Okay.
And then we rebroached the subject of becoming a chaplain. I think by being a chaplain, it's an additional way for me to give back to the community also.
Okay.
Because our church is a part of the Royal Oak community. It's an opportunity to interact with police officers at a level that I've never interacted with, right?
Okay.
To get to know you all. And part of being a police chaplain, I get to do ride-alongs. And I rode with one of your young officers, and I was really impressed as he talked about some of the training that he had,
Okay.
the de-escalation techniques that he had, observing him on police stops and how he, you immediately think, the lights go on and I'm going to get a ticket or something. But there were some incidents where people just did the wrong things, and he used those as educational stops.
Sure.
And talked to the people about you shouldn't do that. And so you get to see a different side of policing. And I think the biggest value for me from being a chaplain was getting to see the human side of the police officers, because when I talked to him and I had a chance to talk to some other officers before we get out, you see officers that are getting married for the first time or their girlfriends, and you realize, okay, this is a person that just like everybody else, same aspirations and same things.
Right.
But the other thing, and probably I think the biggest thing, is that as a community, we have to change the narrative within our communities about the police. No organization is perfect anywhere.
Right.
But I want people to, especially in our congregation, and I want our young people to have that relationship with the police department, to realize and be comfortable around the blue uniform. And we've even had events at our church where officers stopped by and interacted with some of the kids for a brief time.
Awesome.
And so, you change that narrative and you become part of the community, because we're all trying to make our community a safe place and a wonderful place to live.
Exactly.
And the last thing would probably be the opportunity to give back, because being a policeman is a really stressful job, and being a policewoman is an extremely stressful job.
Yes.
And sometimes things happen in your lives. And as clergy, it's an opportunity for me to offer my services also to minister to the needs of the people who are doing so much to keep us safe.
Absolutely.
So that's the reason why.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, friends, we appreciate the time that we had together. Officer Yerke, thank you for being
Thank you
so
very
open.
much.
We hope this video on the school liaison officers will be of benefit to you and will answer some of the questions that you may have as parents. So, Officer Yerke, be safe and continue doing a great job.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.